Welcome to the Unfinished Work Show. I am Mike Lake. Thank you, everybody, for being here and everybody that's going to watch on playback. Episode 7 Change Requires Struggle. And this one is something that's been on my mind for I would say about 2 to 3 weeks in the chamber for me to cover, seeing as it's the actual basis for a lot of what I've been doing in my personal life and what I inspire to do or what I aim to do here on the Unfinished Work Show. Martin Luther King said that change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle. And the interesting thing I thought about his point was the continuous, look like effort. It basically struggle, and you have to have the ball. The point being, what's up, Grill? The point being that it's gonna take some form of attrition, just something to meet that challenge. Because if it's not challenging and it's too easy, then what's the point? What did you really gain by achieving it? Or if you choose the easy route, or if something's just handed to you, you gain nothing. Now, this week particularly, as most of you know, and if you don't know, if you're just here for the first time, I've been doing the 75 Hard Challenge. And that challenge requires significant amount of change to meet that challenge. So the challenge basically entails 2 workouts, one being outside, drinking a gallon of water a day, reading 10 pages of a book, and literally meaning reading, not audible, which is my more favorite thing to do of the two, and a bunch of other things. You can go to their app or their website and figure it out. But the challenge and the struggle that I face in doing the 75 hard is that I'm not a high schooler and I'm not 20 in college or something with ample time on my hand. I actually have a significant schedule as it is, just balancing my day-to-day work life and the variables therein. For instance, yesterday I worked 14 hours. To bang out 14 hours of work and then to have to clock out or take a break before I drove home from where I was at in Ocala, I had to knock out a 2-hour workout, 2 workouts, 45 minutes back to back. And to be honest, it was tough. And I don't mean tough as in up here. I mean physically, just being tired from waking up at that early in the morning and getting on the road, doing my whole day job, and then knocking out the workouts on the back end, only to rush home, try to get some food, spend some time with my lady, and get prepared for the next early morning, which I had to turn around and do it again. It's tough. So part of the hard challenge is the workouts themselves, which, as out of shape as I was/am, that's hard enough. But the struggle really does come into just making it all fit. So I got a double struggle there. And I've been having conversations with my lady about time management, just having the time available to do the things that I need to do, and whether I could do them or not. And it's something I'm constantly challenging myself to see what I can not just fit into my life, but make sure that I can achieve all the things that I want to achieve. The challenge I'm struggling with right now is having the literal time to do all that when my job just so variable. I could work one day and be 4 hours and the next day be 14. And if I had a set schedule, like I'm sure most of you do, a 9 to 5, drive home, 6 o'clock, do what you got to do, it's different. It's not poo cry and somebody save me. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm pointing out the 2 elements of the struggle just on my fitness goals. And that has nothing to do with producing this show and editing and marketing and everything I got to do with this show and the show that I do right after this. Bear the Image, and how I co-host and co-produce and market that. It's just a lot there. So I'm meeting the task, and we'll talk about it as we go through this episode. Another thing I wanted to discuss, this last couple weeks in my men's group on Tuesday at my church, we talked about David and Goliath from the point of view of killing your giants. The metaphor being that the things that we struggle with in life could be giants. They could be big influences or big impacts on our lives, and we have to overcome them. If you're a follower, the short version is, like David, you believe and you move in the power that God has provided you. You will succeed in overcoming that giant. The problem that we have in the day-to-day as people is identifying that giant. I'm sure for David, not I'm sure, it says it in the Bible. For David, it was obvious. Big 9-foot man over there. He talking crap. He want the smoke. Identified, giant identified. But for us, it looks like, what is the thing that you need to overcome? What's the thing that you're shying away from? And what are you going to do to overcome it? And I thought it was very striking and just one of those unplanned, synchronized things where I wanted to do this episode, and we're in week 2 of 6 on that conversation. The two had nothing to do with each other, but they kind of apply. And truthfully, it's just one of those interesting things where sometimes I have to sit and pray and be motivated through the Spirit, but also just be motivated through myself or motivated for my family. I also want to add in motivation from the people who respond to the things that I say and post and do. I had a lot of people hit me up and show support, and not just like the post, but people directly message me and share that they're either doing it or ask questions about it. Where can they find it? How is it? What is it? Etc. It's actually kind of cool to get that type of not just feedback, but just kind of a boost. So I'm on day 24, or actually I'm on day 25. Yesterday was day 24. I noted it in my post as Mamba Day, not because it's Mamba Day, like my lady pointed out. That's August 24th, but Mamba Day as in the 24th day of my challenge. And a lot of my influence throughout the majority of my life has been from Kobe Bryant. I've been a fan my whole life, and I took a lot of what he said to heart, not on the basketball court, because I wasn't that good. I was nice, but in my day-to-day, just the stick-to-itiveness, the ability to break down a situation and keep your mind engaged in a way towards the goal you're trying to achieve. This thing ain't nothing new. I've been a goal achiever my whole life. Not to say that it's been easy, just to say that Kobe came in the league in 96. I was, 10? So you can see where some of that will have some overlap. In fact, he is right. Oh, wrong side. He's right here over my shoulder on the wall. But anyway, day 24, it's been hard. This week was not easy. It's been a struggle of sorts, and I'm still pushing through. And, if you know me and you see me, I don't have a 6-pack or nothing. I'm working, man. It's a lot of physical struggle going on in fact, I added running, which I hate doing. I added running to my workouts, and it's just taking a toll, but I'm pushing through. So let's get it. Now this month, for those, if you don't know, is Men's Health Month, not Men's Mental Health Month, but it is Men's Health Month. Men's Mental Health Month is November, I think. But men's health does encompass a lot of things, such as mental health. So let's get into that. Now, men's mental health could look like a bunch of things. It could be something physical, like fitness, like I was just talking about, or weight loss. It could be medically focused, where if I were you and I was you, I have a primary care doctor. I make sure to schedule my appointments, and I make sure to attend those appointments and follow the advice of my doctor. I take my prescriptions and do everything that I need to do medically, because this health thing ain't a joke. I lost a couple uncles to strokes, heart-related deaths. In fact, they were twins. That had nothing to do with it, but rest in peace to my uncles. It's something that happens, especially to us. I don't know who's out there watching, but if in the male community, heart disease and heart attack are two major factors that take us out. And if you're overweight, that adds factors. If it's in your family and your genetics, that add factors. If you have a lazy or sedentary lifestyle, those add factors. But your medical is important. And if you don't have insurance, there are free clinics that use a sliding scale to determine your payments. There's I don't know what insurances is out there. Is Obamacare still a thing? I don't know. But you need to figure it out. You need to do something to make sure that you not only have access to a doctor, but you use it. You do your preventative treatments, your yearly physicals. You when you hit certain ages and certain things need to be done. Another one that takes us out. If I remember right, the top three killers of men in general were heart disease, heart attack, and prostate cancer. So just be up on your health. It's Men's Health Month, and it's not just because it's this month. It's just something you should be doing unless you want to be here longer. You take your car to get oil changes. You do a lot. You check the you check up on your house. You make sure everything's standing up and is good. But you walking around with this body that ain't been checked on, that could be falling apart on the inside just because you don't see anything visibly wrong. You could be living with an actual catastrophic disease and be on the clock to be up out of here, or you can go to the doctor and figure it out. If you're scared, don't be scared. It's not that crazy. In fact, as you keep it going and you stay up on your maintenance, you would avoid a lot of potential illnesses and issues in the future. And I know I'm directing this at men. It is Men's Health Month, but ladies, if you're listening to, that apply to you too. Go to the doctor. Salute to Grill. He just say he did his way in. He's struggling with his physical. But Grill, we'll talk about that one-on-one, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, like I said, men's health could be physical, it could be medical, it could be sexual. If you're sexually active, make sure you're getting checked for STDs. I think everything I just said about medical in general applies specifically to your penis. And if you're smart, you want to keep that going. I mean, that should be your motivation. Go see somebody with a degree and some skills to test something, put you under the microscope and make sure everything working right. And if it's not, hopefully it's curable and they can take care of that. And if it's not, hopefully it's manageable and they can take care of that. But if you're sexually active, even if you know your partner, you know what's crazy? In fact, I was at the doctor 3-4 weeks ago, and before I got my test, when the doctor ordered my test, she was like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to check your A1C and this and that. Do you want us to do a STD panel? And I don't know why. I just wasn't expecting her to ask me that. I kind of hesitated. And in my mind, I was like, oh, it's just me and my girl. And as in that half a second pause when I hesitated, she interjected, which I like her energy. She interjected like, we getting you one anyway. If you sexually active, you need one. And that's essentially my point, but it probably sounded better coming from her. And if I had access to her to tell y'all, she would. If you're sexually active, if you're sleeping with anybody, they could be sleeping with other people. And you just want to make sure everything is clean and in order and all of that. Now, a lot of this might sound like basic information that the average person my age might know, but there are people of a certain age. In fact, I told you at the beginning of the show, this is directed to the people my son's age all the way up through my dad's age. And, you know, these young teens, they be on the internet all day. They may not know these things or think they apply to them because, like most of us in our youth, we have a real short memory and tunnel vision. So we're not thinking these things can affect us. But like I would tell my son, and like I do tell my son, get your stuff checked out. That brings me to my last point on the general topics of men's health, your hygiene. As again, common sense as it seems, a lot of y'all be musty. I don't know why. Degree works really well. I swear by it. It's not that expensive, and I'm pretty sure it's one of those things. If you had a trouble obtaining it, there's homeless people that get like bags of stuff that include deodorant. So there's no reason that anybody with reasonable means shouldn't have deodorant to not be musty. You should be showering daily. You should be washing your face, and there's even higher levels of care that can be applied, like seeing an esthetician, doing whatever you need to do as far as about your nails, getting your feet checked, getting yourself trimmed and keeping things clean and in order on a hygiene level. And one of my, I would call it a pet peeve / interest is dental. Get your teeth checked, man. I went through, it was about a year ago. I've had good teeth my whole life, and that sounds like a brag, but you see me out here. And I say good in the sense of haven't had many problems. I haven't had any oral surgeries or anything that I had to do until very recently, which comes with age. But the doctor had to address some feelings, and I had to get one of them a root canal. It was crazy. I was 36 or something. And I was like, what's happening? I felt like a child again, getting my first procedures. But that's because I've always taken care of my teeth. I always flossed, and I think my lady listening, she'll get a kick out of this. Like, I used to have a crazy crush on my dental hygienist. She's this amazing Hispanic lady. If you, she was dope though. She was good. She was very direct. I respond well to people being direct. And she used to always tell me like, "You're not flossing. I know you're not flossing." And she would get on me like my mother would. But in any case, my crush wasn't the sole reason I was going there. I think teeth care is a real big deal. Even in my current age, I know medically speaking, it kind of slides into medical. There are mouth issues that can occur that can cause you get into your bloodstream and cause you further issues down the line. So being that your mouth is a part of your face and you're talking to people, and we all smell y'all breath. We know when your breath bad, and I ain't gonna act like my breath ain't never bad, but I'm talking about when it's like that deep bad, that pungent, that you don't want to be running around with that. So go see a dentist, get your hygiene up, take your showers, stay trimmed, get tested, and that's what we're gonna talk about for Men's Health Month. Now I'm gonna keep this up here while I discuss this. I was debating whether I should share this or not. Part of men's health, like I said, is mental health, and men suffer a lot in this arena because, like all the other things that I said that might seem, cheeky, laughable, and that other stuff. Take a shower, get your STDs checked, and make sure you not 400 pounds and on some Discovery Channel documentary. Those will eventually kill you if you don't take care of them. But mental health is one of the biggest issues that men face because they don't want to face the issues. They essentially avoid it, they downplay it or recategorize, whatever you want to call it. But I had a friend who was about a year ago, 2 years ago, a year and a half, who took his life, and I talked to him often, and he told me he was struggling. His wife knew he was struggling. It was something that he was aware of and working on and doing his therapy and groups and all the stuff that he needed to do. He was taking his medication and ultimately lost the mental health battle to a string of just, I'm not going to call it bad luck, but whatever was going on in his life, I didn't find out. I knew he was struggling and his wife was helping him handle it. He was dealing with it. But ultimately, he lost that battle, and it was sad. It hurt. I went to the funeral and everything. But it was one of those, I wouldn't call it out of the blue, but when it happened, you just didn't think it would happen. He had a lot to live for, was my point. And I don't want any of y'all who are listening or who may listen in the future, or if you know me, to go through that kind of stuff or feel like you out there on an island by yourself or you're alone. And when you can call me, and this friend would occasionally call me and I would call him, and for a period of time, like ultimately when he ceased to be here, I almost didn't know. I didn't know it was getting that bad. I knew he was struggling, but I didn't know it was that bad. And I don't want any of that for any of y'all. If you got my number and you know me personally, reach out, hit me up. Not that I'm a doctor or anything, but I'll do my best to try and point you to where you could go get some help. And there are other resources out there too, such as if you're in Florida, 211 is a great resource. That's a hotline that you could reach out to people, and they can get you immediate crisis intervention care and or further ongoing care. They can point you to any resources that you need. In fact, that doesn't just apply to mental health. It does apply to a lot of stuff. If you're in Florida and you need help with something, hit up 211. There are resources. But specific to this topic, there's a national hotline you can call, and it's 988. You just dial a number, and same thing. Lots of resources, nationally funded, et cetera, et cetera. But you don't want to be in a position or put your family in position or do anything that creates additional obstacles for you to have to overcome because you didn't use the resources around you and the ones that are available to you. And I don't want that for you either. Please, my God, call somebody, reach out, and do whatever you need to do to have help or accept help, or just reach out. That's all I can give you on that. The national hotline is 988, and the Florida local one is 211. I used to work at Mental Health Care. It's a crisis facility here in Tampa. It goes under a different name now. But I worked in intake, and I talked to face to face a lot of people who were going through these struggles, and oftentimes they would fail because they were being brought to this facility, which wasn't a medical facility, but it's a mental health facility. And I'll be there to receive them, secure them, make sure they didn't have anything to further harm themselves. And then I would check them in, and we would just sit and talk because we had time getting their demographic info, their medical info, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people would not only talk about the regret they felt in the immediacy after they tried to do what they tried to do, but they would also just talk about how they felt alone, and then also that they didn't reach out and try to get help from somewhere else, which at that point they're being forcibly helped or directed to help, because you can't leave until you see a psych doctor, and some people are asked to stay longer for additional care short term, and if you need to, you could be transferred wherever you go long term. But that's another place you can reach out to them. They are local. 211 might even direct you to them. And I worked there for 2.5, 3 years, I believe it was. A lot of stories, a lot of faces, a lot of people, different ages, different races, different money, different everything. And I would say, I'm not going to say there was more men than women. It's the facility in Tampa, so everybody was there. But I always noticed, and I think statistics back this up, that men's were just such much more drastic attempts on their own lives. So please get and seek help if you need it. If you think you need it, even if I'm not really sure, just call somebody who's trained and licensed and can help you out. Now, there are stats associated with this. Remember earlier I mentioned that men are less likely to seek help. They're less likely than women for depression, substance abuse, and just stressful. And it's due to that reluctance to talk, social norms of man up and toughen up and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, downplaying symptoms. I got this information from mentalhealthamerica.net. But again, even just doing the research for the show and what I already did or didn't know, I know that there are tons of resources on this internet, what they say on Al Gore's internet. There's tons of resources in apps on your phone. There's even apps that you can do therapy over. I'm sure there are tons of offices and resources and places you can reach out to seek help and talk to somebody. So the top 5 things that affect men, the major mental health things that affect men are depression, bipolar disorder, psychosis and schizophrenia, which is one, and then eating disorders. And I'll give y'all a sec to digest what's being shown on this, but 6 million men suffer from depression a year. A lot of it goes undiagnosed because they're not doing the thing I just told y'all to do before, which is reach out and seek help. 19.1 million adults between 18 and 54 have anxiety disorders, and over 3 million men have panic disorders, agoraphobia, which is a fear of leaving the house, and other just general phobias that could be negatively affecting their lives or their family and their people's lives. Psychosis and schizophrenia would probably present as debilitating. You probably wouldn't be too functional. So if someone around you, if you think someone has this, you might want to suggest or get them to be in front of a doctor to be diagnosed. And then as far as eating disorders, I'm not going to say this was a surprise because I live in the internet era, but when you hear eating disorder, I can't be the only one that automatically just pictures that to be like a women thing, because men are usually comfortable with their bodies. They don't care how they look. They're not held to certain standards, but it shows you right here that 10% of patients with anorexia and bulimia, an estimated 35% of those with binge eating disorders. And because these numbers, like you read 10% of patients, you're like, oh, 90% is women. That kind of disproves my other point. But it's because they're not seeking the help and being diagnosed, which I'm sure those numbers are not as lopsided as they seem, 90-10. Just because men just aren't going to see and seek help and report these kinds of things. So if you think you are being affected by any of this, know the symptoms, look them up, and again, reach out to somebody and talk to them so they can professionally diagnose you and point you to the right resources so you can live a regular, I wouldn't say regular, but you can live a more comfortable life, a better quality of life is what I was trying to say. Um, that's funny. So, and this guide, they had a 5 minute guide. It was a whole long thing. I just took a snippet off the top that 1 in 5 adults experience mental health problems per year. And serious illness costs in the billions, $193.2 billion a year, that is spent on dealing with mental health illnesses. But 6 million men deal with these things. 6 million. I don't know a lot of people, but I'm sure there are people that you know or deal with or interact with in work or church or life in your friendships that suffer from these things and are trying to cope and deal with it by themselves. And just please just take my advice and talk to somebody, go to some group, get some medication if needed, or whatever you need to do to have that taken care of. Now, as far as men's health goes, there are a lot of variables that, in a general sense, if you're not dealing with something as serious as a mental health illness, you still gonna have to go through some struggles to achieve anything that you want to achieve above where you are. It starts with something called self-talk. Self-talk and excuses, really, because self-talk is a thing you tell yourself, the reasons you aren't succeeding at the things you're trying to do. And then the excuses, everybody know what an excuse is. Excuses are what you tell yourself to allow yourself off the hook to not have to do those things, which is a crazy combination. If you think about it, you not only have the ability to convince yourself to do or not to do something, and then back it up with reasons, and then have that court, basically have it be like judge, jury, executioner in your head to just absolve yourself of that problem. And I think a lot of people would agree that nowadays, with all the participation trophies and all the coddling and all these things, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't be taken care of. What I mean by coddling is allowing people to make excuses and live in them, and the ability for social media to push those excuses so they can market those reasons. It looks a lot like the Victim Olympics, where people get to make up reasons, or even if they're partially true, get to use those things as a reason to cop out on the things that they should do rather than doing them themselves. Another variable outside of your head is your environment, literally the things outside of you. You surround yourself with certain things, and I noticed this even for myself. When you're in periods of pushing forward, you have to keep the certain things that drag you back or drag you down out of your space. As I'm looking around, and y'all can't really see the bookcase over my shoulder, but on this bookshelf is a lot of, I wouldn't say self-help books, but a lot of biographies, a lot of self-improvement. In fact, in my reach right here, this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is one that was given to me recently. In fact, I just started reading it. But the point of it is, instead of me sitting down, and I love video games and I'm a big proponent of them, instead of me sitting and just vegging out, instead of me coming home from work and just relaxing and throwing on some TV, kicking back, eating some bad snacks or whatever, I found even in these last, let's say 3 months, I've been hyper consuming things that can help me improve myself and subsequently pass this information off to y'all. I subscribe to a lot of financial podcasts, a lot of self-improvement. Recently, when I say recent, I mean literally like last week, started watching like David Goggins videos to hype myself up before workouts. That dude is an absolute nut in the best way for motivation. He's a dog. He legitimately might be kind of crazy in the best way possible in terms of fitness and goal achievement. But I just recently started watching him and stuff like that. Just what's my boy, Jordan Peterson. I can name people for days, but the point of it is what you surround yourself with. You got control over certain things in your environment. What you watch and consume is part of that. if you're listening to certain types of music, music has an influence on us. It can affect your mood and and make you feel different things at different times. I wouldn't say make, but influence how you feel. Uh, imagine imagine a scenario where not just like, oh, it's not like this. I'm not saying you feel sad so you listen to sad music. I'm talking about the literal ability to be like, oh man, I feel down, let me throw in some hype music, some crunk music or something to get you going, and then it actually helps affect your mood. But think about what that does in the negativity space when you are, say, like you're in a relationship and you're trying to focus on your lady and be monogamous and do all that good stuff, and then you over here listening to music talking about smashing chicks and doing all this other crazy stuff. These are the influences you putting in your head on a day-to-day basis, sometimes for hours on end, at all times of day and night. And I'm not saying don't listen to it because I'm a big proponent of music. I'm saying if you are in a headspace where you want to achieve something, you should be listening to and consuming things that help you do that if that's your main goal. If you are in a spiritual space and you want to feel better in that spiritual space, you better have some spiritual music on to kick you into a certain gear and a mindset, and to back up the thing that you not only want to feel, but you may already be feeling, rather than the things that pull you away from it. Environment is big. It really, I mean, I'm not even talking like Darwin, but there are studies that show an environment can influence an organism's growth. If you live in a dry area, you acclimate to dry. If you live underwater, you grow gills, and the same thing happens to us. If you want to be better, but you're only watching, let's say, trashy type reality TV, and I mean only, not occasionally. When you're only consuming that, these are the behaviors and the ideas you put in your head. These are the things you're subjecting yourself to on a day-to-day basis. Change it. Part of change is the struggle to not do the easy thing. You don't, it's easy to listen to music I grew up with and music I love. It's harder to find other things to make me want to do better for myself. And it's not always the most entertaining thing, but there are plenty of pretty entertaining versions of it. So just look into it, find your thing, surround yourself with the environment you want to be in. Just imagine you're like a turtle in one of those aquariums, and you get to choose what you put in it. What goes into your ears, what goes into your mouth in terms of food. Don't be nasty. What literally conversations you find yourself having. When my homies hit me up, I'm sure they could tell you. When my homies hit me up nowadays, what we talking about? I'm giving them something I learned in church, something that affected me in the personal space, something that I dealt with on my fitness chase, or something that I'm doing as it relates to my relationship and the upcoming wedding we got coming up. That these are the things that are happening in my life today, so that's what you get. But if I was surrounding myself with other stuff, my energy would be a lot different. Somebody was like, "Hey, did you see the thing that happened with YK Osiris?" And I was like, first of all, I barely remembered dude from music, but I didn't see it. And I only after I was asked that, saw it because I happened to be taking a mental break on social media, and I didn't see the whole video, but I just saw what people were talking about. And I was like, man, that's crazy. I'm like so out of the loop. I know the other side of that might be because I'm a little bit old, but truthfully, I'm not on the whatever sites are still popping. What is it, Shade Room or World Star? I'm not on these sites trying to consume that type stuff because it ain't got nothing to do with what I got going on right now. So it's not even interesting to me to want to have that information in my head. I don't care what they doing out here. I don't care what these celebrities talking about, unless they talk about some way to help me benefit and move up in my space, in my circle. But anyway, your environment plays a big part. And the last thing, your circle. Who you surround yourself with plays a big part. Because I've even recently come into contact with people who, like a guy that I know who wanted to do better spiritually, but felt like he wanted to stop drinking and stop doing some of these other things that might affect his life negatively, but his spouse didn't. So he kept finding himself in situations where that was happening, and not that he didn't have the resistance to avoid it, but like, come on. If you are, let's say this doesn't apply to this person, but if you're an alcoholic and your spouse in the house just boozing it up and having parties and whatnot, I ain't saying leave your spouse. I'm just saying check your circle. If your homies can't accept the fact that you, like right now on the 75 harder, I'm not drinking alcohol. It's part of the challenge. When I go out with my homies, they know what it is. They're not trying to be like, hey, Mike, let's drink some shots. Now, I have some trolls in my group who have said it, but they're not actually trying to influence me on it. In fact, I'd imagine that if I wanted to drink, a few of them might be like, "Nah, dog, you got this. You stick to this. Do what you doing." In fact, one of them was talking to me about my bachelor party coming up, and he was like, he's not gonna let me drink, basically. So it's who you surround yourself with. The people that are closest to you also influence you. And the thing I would say about that on the negative side of it, if you got people in your group who are naysayers like to tell you what you can't do or why they believe you can't do it, it adds another obstacle to your goal. And I don't mean a positive one like, hey, I want to start a business, so I have to do some things to get ready to start that business. Those types of obstacles you want to hit them and you want to achieve them. But you don't need naysayers dragging you down when you're trying to climb out this pit. You don't need people trying to tell you what they secretly telling you is why they don't think they could do it. And if you surrounded by these people, you're outnumbered. If you're not mentally tough enough to not be around them, I doubt you're mentally tough enough to avoid the things that they say or not let it stick to you and not let it get to you, especially in those moments where it's hard and you down. Most of my friend group is fitness dudes, and salute to them for the support that they showing me during my fitness journey. But if they weren't, and the messages they were sending me back like 75, you can't do that. Nah, man, stay over here with us. Be fat with us. It'd be a lot harder for me to push through daily. If my spouse wasn't one of the ones, like even literally yesterday, when I was like, man, I'm not really feeling this. I worked all day. It's going to be tough to achieve the goal. Before I could even finish the next text to say, but I'm finna do it, she had already said, keep a positive mindset and push through. You can do it. Like she was already in my corner before I even took the turn away from my quick vent. So surround yourself with some good people. I promise you, if you got challenge seekers around you, if you got achievers around you, I would even say if you're in a group, if you ever experience this, let me know. You walk into a group of people or some type of networking event or something, and you feel out of place because you ain't on the level yet. If you had a group of friends who were achievers and you weren't achieving, you would feel out of place. You would look real crazy. You would stick out like a sore thumb in a group of people who were like, yo, we just did this. We knocked this out. We doing this. Yo, what'd you do? Oh, I spent all day on WorldStar and Facebook. That's what you want? That's what you want to do? Cool. But not me, not my group. And I would suggest if you got these people around you, get some distance and surround yourself with new people, and then use some of the other stuff I was saying, like changing your environment, changing the things you consume, and then just switching up your self-talk, and stop giving in to your own excuses and stop listening to the other people's excuses. So another variable is your inner monologue. It's a different version of self-talk. Self-talk is just more short-term, like what you're saying to yourself in a moment. Oh man, I don't really feel like doing this, that kind of thing. Inner monologue is with you daily. It's the thing that you've been telling yourself since you realized you have voices in your head and it was you talking to yourself. It's what you tell yourself, and it informs your level of action. Now, there's studies that show that your brain can't tell the difference. Now, this is crazy. Your brain can't tell the difference from what you tell it versus what's actually happening. So if you tell yourself everything's going bad, your brain don't know that it's not, and it's going to chemically respond or physiologically respond to what you said to yourself. Over time, like just think about what that does to you 6 months, a year, 10 years. I'm 37. Imagine, let's say reasonably 32 conscious years of my life telling myself I'm not worth it or I can't do it or whatever. That stuff starts to pile up. Your brain doesn't know the difference. So your brain might be living in a space from your inner voice telling them, like if I told my brain over and over, I live back in slave times, my brain don't know that we're not doing that. It's just responding to that. Are we in a fight or flight mode, or are we under attack, or whatever it is that might be happening? And also, you could tell your brain good things too and hack it in a way and trick yourself into pushing a little further. If you at the end of your run, like one thing I've been doing lately, and I'm getting better. I've never been a runner. I used to make a lot of excuses. So I know a thing or two about the thing I'm talking about right now. But the thing I've recently been doing when I run is tapping into that inner monologue, telling myself that I'm not tired. I can go a little bit further. I know I said I was going to run to that tree. I'm going to run to the next tree. And then when I get to the next tree, it's kind of funny how I didn't even realize like I had another gear in me. And I was nodding and yawning. I'm not sure why the thing just dropped out, but no reasonable person believe like once you hit the tire point and you start telling yourself that you are tired and you're this is yes doing this thing yourself. So just in that study, and it went into great detail about how he figured it out and what he told them to say and not to say. But the gist of it is check yourself on the things that you tell yourself and the way you describe yourself. So if you describe yourself with those type of adjectives that paint you in a bad light versus describing exactly what's what, it'd be like the difference of me saying I got a big nose or some other version of that describes it way in a more negative light. I can measure it, I can describe it, and there might even be medical terms for whatever it is that you're trying to describe about yourself. Use those. They're more informative to be affected by change, and it puts you in a better position. There was also, I read, and I feel very pinky up about this. I was reading the National Library of Medicine, and a study from a Harvard professor showed that they did tests on people, and the thing like they had a group that was the negative self-talk group, and they had a group that was the positive self-talk group, and they put them in an MRI, and they had them for whatever period of time. Like y'all can read up on the actual details of how they did it. The gist of it is this: they measured them in an MRI machine to determine what their brain was doing when certain things are being said. And the group that was a positive self-talk group, their brains responded with the part of the brain that affects activity. When you tell yourself positive things about yourself, it basically activates a part of your brain that wants to do something. Basically, if you're trying to hit a goal, tell yourself you're going to hit that goal. You're going to kill that goal. You're going to push through it. You're going to knock it down or whatever it is. And the activation center in your brain will help add to the verbal speak that you're telling yourself to help push you forward. Remember in my example a second ago, I can run to the next tree. Yeah, I can do it. Then my brain kicks in and it does it. It helps to push that activation center that helps me push towards that challenge. Now, the negative self-talk group, actually, they noted, and there was a bunch of details in it. It wasn't as like black and white as I'm probably about to make it sound. The gist of it was this: the negative self-talk group trended more towards, first of all, their activation center of their brain did not activate at all. Their activity section of their brain. The other side, it basically diminished the part of the brain that handles attention. And it basically, they derived from the study that when you speak negative self-talk, not only do you not get that boost from the activation center, from the activity center in your brain, you also get another negative that takes away some of your attention, which is how you can distract yourself with something that doesn't push you towards your goal. The way I would look at it is like this. If I'm on the couch and I'm like, man, I'm really not feeling like going running today, I also don't get the boost to like tell me to get your butt up and go out there and run. But then I further get the loss of attention span, and I forget that I was even about to do something anyway, and either I could go to sleep or throw a TV on, turn the Xbox on. The point being, there's a clear physiological response that happens in your body, backed by science, that tells you when you tell yourself positive things happen within your body, and negative things negate that positive thing in your brain specifically, and then diminishes your attention, which helps add to your laziness and nonsense. So just keep those things in mind when we talk about inner monologue. And I didn't even get into the details. Just take that on an MRI scan is what, 5 minutes in a moment. Imagine negative self-talk over a period of 10 years or 20 years of telling yourself you out of shape and I'm out of shape and I'm not worth it. And your body going, yeah, oh, by the way, forget about all that. Look over here. What does that do to you? What does that end up looking like on you? What does it look like to the people around you? If you're not achieving, if you're setting goals, salute, you probably are already on the path to tell yourself, I could do this, because no one's going to set a goal they can't achieve. But if you're setting goals and you're finding often that you're not achieving them, you might need to look around you at these different variables. What's happening in your head? What's happening with the people around you? What's happening with the things that you consume that's affecting you in ways that you're not even paying attention to keep you from hitting those goals? And if you're one of those people who just aren't setting goals, if you're listening to this, I don't know how you got here. I appreciate you being here. Start by making a list of goals. Make a short-term list a medium-term list, and a long-term list, and then do all the same other stuff that I said by looking inward into your head, looking outward, and the people around you and the things you consume. If anybody got any questions or comments, by all means, feel free to hit them things in the chat. I will try to get to them at the end of the show, which I'm about to wrap up here pretty soon. But I wanted to cover this TED Talk. I watched this a few months ago. Very interesting TED Talk about how comfort is killing you by Bill Ekstrom. He has some company that does something about motivating people. I wish I had more information right now off the head, but I don't. Let's see if I'm at the right spot. Y'all check this out.
A safe environment. It's also very limiting in most every way. And when placed in a more robust environment, like say a small pond, this can be the result. Now it also means he could be eaten. But friends, this is you. The environments in which you work, live, and play, they're all a proverbial fishbowl that dictates your growth. So the first growth ring represents a low-performing, low-growth environment called stagnation. Stagnation is understood by having to follow too many steps and permissions and minutiae, thus stifles creativity, independent thought, and action. To imagine an environment such as this, think no further than our state and federal governments. Now, the antithesis of stagnation is chaos, also low growth and low performing. Chaos can be caused by internal or external. Occur at times in business mergers, natural disasters, and horrific events like 9/11. Chaos is having zero predictability or control over inputs and outcomes. Coming back down the growth rings, next to stagnation is the most desirable environment, order. Order is knowing that what you do or what is happening in your environment leads to a predictable outcome. And in predictability, comfort is found.
So Mr. Ekstrom basically was explaining how comfort is killing you. And I'm scrolling through to the next point because I wanted to cover specific things. You can watch the whole thing on Ted's YouTube, and I'll include the link in the comments after I'm done here. And then he wrapped up his point.
Years ago. By the way, I'm not recommending you go get fired to see if it leads to a TED Talk, but when you feel discomfort hit, that means you've entered the complexity ring. Complexity is nothing more than changed order. But when your order is changed, outcomes are no longer predictable, and it's unpredictability that makes you uncomfortable. And well, most times, your visceral response to discomfort is not just no, but hell no. You can actually learn how empowering it is to consciously acknowledge discomfort, and then when appropriate, choose complexity over order. And I know seeking discomfort sounds odd, and not many people do it, but you have to learn to embrace it because it's the only environment where sustained or exponential growth can occur.
All right, so I'm gonna stop it there. And Mr. Ekstrom, basically, he went through his life talking about how he was working his job, he was relaxed, he was comfortable. One of those jobs. He was sitting pretty. All of a sudden, he was laid off. So he was pushed out of his comfort zone into a chaotic space. Now, the brain has this, let me actually move this. The brain actually has this ability, everybody who has the ability to think, and they push towards comfort. You want to be comfortable. Everything you do is to create a situation of comfort for yourself. Example, the chairs you sit in, the shoes you wear, or even just in life, you want to be in comfortable spaces. No one wants to put themselves in a place of discomfort outside of their comfort zone. That's why a lot of people don't hit the goals that they want to hit. Now, he also went on to add that there are a few ways when you're in the comfort space to be pushed out of it. And basically, it could either be forced upon you, somebody else could help push you out of that comfort space, or you could trigger yourself to move out of that comfort space. And what he ended up doing after he got laid off was he started assessing his life and looked at it like, oh, first he was playing victim, and then he was like, I need to do something about it. And then he started working to get back into those comfort spaces, into those higher levels on the ring, away from chaos, back down towards complexity, etc. And he created a company that basically trains and goes out and does motivational speeches and that kind of thing to help other people achieve or realize what the growth rings are and how they affect you in your day-to-day life. And you can go back and forth at any moment from this one to that one. And like I said, if it's forced upon you, like him, he was laid off. If you ever had this happen to you, you could have a death in the family, or you could lose a job, or something can pop up that was unexpected. Hey, all my bills are being paid, everything's cool, and a meteor comes through your roof, or whatever. Something can happen to force this chaos upon you, and then your next goal should be evaluating the situation to determine how to get yourself back to work comfort. But you don't want to sit in comfort, because if you sit there too long, you remain, or you fall down into stagnation, which means there's no growth. And if you know anything about anything stagnating, it's nothing good. If you got water that's stagnant, you get mosquitoes and other algae and nonsense that can grow in it. If you are, as a person, stagnant, that's where you get all that weight gain and lethargy and health issues. If it's even if it's a car, if you let a car sit long enough, it's going to start to break down just from lack of use, because nothing on this planet works if it remains stagnant. There always has to be some type of complexity to push you towards discomfort, to require you to improve. Which brings me back to that point, that if you want to change, you have to be uncomfortable, and then you have to work through that struggle to push yourself back to the comfort space, but not stay in it too long. And if you see yourself in a comfort space, then you could do one of the other two things, which is choose someone else to help get you out of that comfort space, like a coach or a personal trainer or some type of mentor or something, to tell you, hey, I evaluated, or I've been through this, or I'm paid to do this, or I'm licensed to do this. Here's how you improve. You can pick someone to help you get out of that, to put you in a complex circle, or you could just trigger yourself, like I did. I woke up one day, not even one day, I was having a convo with my homie Jerry, and we were just talking about our life and our schedules and our goals, and I was telling him, here's how I break it down. And I've told y'all on the other episodes, but I'll repeat it here. I said, where do I want to improve in these categories? I want to have a better relationship with my girl, and it was already amazing, but I was like, I want to pour more into that. And we started working, unknown to her, I started working on pushing us to the next level, which now we're engaged and we're working towards marriage. But even in other ways, we want to grow together. So that pushed me into my next category, which was faith. I looked at myself and said, I grew up in this faith. I love it. I feel good when it's going well. And when I'm away from it, I feel not so good. So I want to get back to that. And so did she. So we did that as a couple and as individuals. And I would pray that I'm never forced into this, but it will happen. And at some point in my life, when I'm forced out of comfort into complexity or towards chaos, I will evaluate that and see what's the next best step to push me forward to that. And you should too. Create the struggle, or have it forced upon you, or pay somebody to put it on you. But without that struggle, you won't change anything. And if you want to change, then you got to seek out the struggle. I word it like this. In order to change, you got to find where you struggle and overcome it. I put that in the description of this video. I wrote it down. I made sure I wanted to read it right. And remember that Martin Luther King said the change does not roll on the wheels of inevitability, but it comes through continuous struggles. And if you don't see the value in that, he's basically saying that it's not easy. It's not just rolling along. It's not something that just happens. You got to go through something. You got to hit some bumpy roads. You got to get some flat tires. You got to find that thing and then kill it figuratively to get to the next stage. Nothing will ever change. A caterpillar will never be a butterfly if it don't go into that cocoon and go through its chemical process to get there. And neither will you. Remember, everybody, I appreciate y'all for being here. Thank you for sharing. Please hit the like button before you go and shoot it out to somebody you think that needs help or a swift kick in the butt to change, and I'll make sure to get at them. Again, thank y'all for being here. I'm Mike Lake. I will see y'all next week. And as I say at the end of every show, this is the Unfinished Work Show. I have a lot of work to do. My creator's not done with me yet either. Or I messed up my own slogan. My creator's not done with me. He's not done with you either. See y'all next week.